Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO and VC podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business and investing from the inside out. And today I am welcoming from Boston, Senofer Mendoza. How are you, Senofer?
Good. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you too. I want to share with everyone before we get into it. We do have a 6 degrees of separation, which we shared when we first connected a few weeks ago. And for all the listeners out there, even around the world, I hugely love my football team, Australian Football League. And anyway, we were talking about Jennifer has a puppy, beautiful little puppy who's sitting at her office door. And then I've got Miley Bob, who's 2. So we were talking puppy stories. And then somehow something came up about football. I think you love American football, Jennifer. I think we were talking about something. You were heading somewhere. And then lo and behold, next thing I know, you're like, oh yeah, we sponsored Collingwood Football Club. We're really good friends with Josh. And I'm, what? And I'm just like, so I go to the footy every other week. And so I do love these little 6 degrees of separation when I'm meeting various people like yourself that come on the pod. And next thing we know, we've got this connection. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with everybody. And then you said you had a scarf and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah, me too. I left this swag, but it was like the first time I met Josh, I thought he was talking about soccer because he was talking about his knees. And I said, well, if you want to have good knees, maybe don't play soccer. And it was an Australian colleague that introduced us. And they both looked at me like I was crazy because I thought, of course, the Australians were talking about football. It must be soccer. And he was like, no.
Yeah, it's
And
such
then
a
I saw the video and then I worry about him now.
it's such a small world. Anyway, like you can be across the other side of the world. I can be here, and yet we have things like that in common. And I'm really
Collingwood football unites everyone.
hopefully we win tonight. We're playing tonight, actually. I'm really excited to have you on the show, though. I always love having women who have, like yourself, in terms of in the VC space in particular. I'm finding it super interesting, and you've got quite the story, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. First things first, you are a beautiful mom. You've got the 2 kids with your husband, who is the partner of your firm, or your company, I should say. And I said, oh, like, what time is it? You said 6 p.m. And I said, oh, I'll let you, we'll move through this fast. You're like, oh, no, don't worry. The kids are here. Like, it's a real family thing going on in the office. They're here having dinner with my husband in the boardroom. And I'm like, I love that. You're just puppies there. Everyone's there, which just always reminds me that everything is always integrated. And yeah, so let's get into it. You're the founder and general partner of Mendoza Ventures, which is a Boston-based venture capital firm, and it is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. So you kicked it off back in 2016. So congratulations on your 10-year anniversary in 2020.
Thank you.
You invest at the intersection of fintech, AI, and cybersecurity. You and your husband launched the firm to help close the early stage funding gap, and you've built a hands-on investment platform that backs founders with strong domain expertise and real-world traction. I want to also highlight that you're the first company to have the first Latino fund in the East Coast. So I'll let you explain more about that when I hand it over to you. Your background spans across enterprise sales, hospitality, design, and venture building. And Senofer brings both operator instinct and investor discipline to the table. Alongside the team, you work closely with founders beyond the check. And we did have a little bit of a chat about this the other week when we were talking. You help shape early syndicates, unlock strategic introductions, and build the commercial foundations that support scale. And your work is deeply shaped by the commitment to equity and representation, with much of the Mendoza venture portfolio led by immigrants, women, and founders of color. At the core of your philosophy is a systems view of capital. And this is when you were talking to me about this the other week, and it's very formless. You said money is not static. It moves, and where it flows shapes what gets built, who gets backed, and what the future looks like. I really love that. I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell us a bit about your journey.
Thank you so much. I don't know where to start. I feel like whenever you take 10 years and condense it down to 30 seconds, it sounds like, of course, I was born to run a venture capital firm, but I was not.
Let's start there. Funnily enough, you bring that up because I was reading something last night online, and there's such this thing around, you start a company and it looks all shiny and rosy on the outside. And it was really interesting, it was a great, and I'd love your thoughts on this part of what, even your own journey, in terms of 10 years into a business, you're like, that 10-year can be like a consolidation of like the first few years where you fully struggled. You were like, what is this? What are we doing? How are we putting this together? And then you all of a sudden just hit your stride. And you must see this in founders that you invest in and businesses that you invest in as well. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think ventures funny. It's a different industry. It's basically the wild west of private equity. And so we set out to create a venture firm that was institutionalized. And that was really the goal from the beginning because we thought that founders deserved capital that was accountable to their investors and long-term support. So we're not designed like a typical VC firm in a lot of ways. And to your point, necessity breeds ability. So, like, my kids are in the conference room because they both just got out of school and needed dinner. So, I think that a lot of our transparency was originally born of necessity, but I didn't realize 10 years ago that by being a transparent parent that was fundraising and doing all these things, that I was setting an example. And that has been told to me by amazing other women that share their thoughts since then. And so I really look at it as how can you do the next thing? I never feel like I'm hitting my stride, even when I am. I'm just really hard on myself. So I don't, we're doing great, but I see the next problem because I own the business. But I think it's like, I really look at it as how can we make it a little bit easier for the next woman to walk in the room? How can I open the door just a little bit wider? Even if that's I'm going to a meeting and I bring one of our fellows with me, or I'm having a coffee with someone and I make sure to bump into one of our fellows in the coffee shop or something like that. Like, how do I engineer just facilitation to make sure that we're not the only ones in the room doing this all the time?
I love the way that you engineer the facilitation. It's almost like this continuous connection, right? Like it's like a constant, passing. It's not even passing the baton, is it? It's just that how are you, continuing to do the next thing or the next connection, if you like. How important do you think that is? Like, I mean, that is clearly really important. Do you think it's more important than ever in the world we're in right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm dating myself, but I'm an elder millennial. And so we were raised to kind of believe that our parents had handled a lot of the issues in the workforce for us. And I think we all had this rude awakening when we entered the workforce, and it was still just really hard. And I came to realize that it was going to continue to be hard until women were writing the check. Like until, the capital that's financing the business or the startup or whatever reflect who's working in it. It's always gonna be hard to get that capital, and so I really started with I'm too practical. My team will tell this all the time. My partner is "We're gonna land on Mount Everest," and I'm the one
You're
that's
so
like, "We're gonna
busy.
survive base camp." Like, um, and so I really started with what can we do with a check, our first check, and then if that was all that we did we help? And so we really look at it from that perspective of help or get out of the way. And now that has scaled where my checks are now about $2 to $4 million, which is great. And it's a lot easier to help with $2 to $4 million than it is, with 10K or 100K. You just have a bigger stick with which to wield the influence. It's amazing how fast founders can come up with an inclusive policy over the weekend for 2 million.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that definitely helps now. But growing there, we still look at it as okay, if this is what we can give this startup, did we help? Did we get them to a point that they're now more likely to thrive?
I love that. And so you mentioned also though that you always intend to get into venture? It doesn't sound like you did. Like it was that
No,
into how did you fall into Mendoza Ventures and everything
not
that you're doing like now? Like, yeah.
yeah, my master's degree is in interior design. And so I was a interior designer. I joke with our team that my master's degree is in coloring. So if I can figure out the math, you can figure out the math. But I was an interior architect and I did really large scale hotel renovations. And for anyone in that industry, it's basically like a project manager on steroids. shipping code is much easier than shipping 900 pieces of furniture from China to land in Bermuda on time. And so I had this really helpful core skill set of not being freaked out by big budgets and just solving consistent weird problems. Like you can't use that here, or the bed's the wrong size, or oh, we opened the container full of glass doors and all the glass is on the floor of the container. What do you do? And so it just shook down a lot of that. I think in your 20s, it's really easy to get intimidated by business problems, and you just can't in that industry. You don't have time to worry about it. And so that was really helpful. And then my co founder had a tech startup in our living room. And so really, I COO'd it because I wanted my living room back. I was like, this is
Practical,
great, but
practical again. I just want my living room back.
yes, just want my living room. And I like you, so the startup has to go. So so I helped him grow that, and it was before a COO was really a recognized, it was like 2010 where like the COO was like chief of staff role was really cool. So I helped scale that and then worked in enterprise sales for a while. And what I found was that my kids were younger and they were vocally letting us know in the way that young children do that a 9 to 5 for mom was not working for them. And at the same time, we were starting to talk about raising fund too. And so I had to sit down with my partner and I just said, and I think that this is a really helpful practice that we have because we've had a few companies now. I said, we're going to take, this amount of money and 6 months, and then we're going to check in with each other and see if this is working. I said, I could help with the startup. I know I can do that. I've never raised a fund before. I'm going to try and help you in this capacity. I learned as much as, I mean, it was drinking from a fire hose. I learned as much as I could quickly.
Yeah.
And I closed our anchor investor for our second fund. And so from there, I'm the kind of person that like I have to rub it in my own face that I have value add. And then I was like, oh, I can do this. I think so many women like need the certificate.
Yeah.
There's no certificate for raising a fund. You just have to go do it. So I did the shakedown and now we've closed our third fund at 20 million.
Wow. And as part of being a female and raising a fund, is that where when did you start to see, did you notice a gap in terms of, like when it comes to raising funds, versus is the wrong word. I can't think of anything else. And I know that it's a challenge and I know there's some significant data around, women seeking funding versus men seeking funding, etc. Like, when did you realize there was a real gap? And then obviously you honed in on, people of color, immigrants, and, we talked a lot about women in VC. When did you
So
experience it yourself at all, or did you just observe in general the ecosystem and go, hey, there's a real gap here or there's an opportunity here?
it's one of those things that it's kind of like asking a woman in business, like, have you ever had a challenging day? Like, there's all the stats that we all live with and we read about in the news and stuff, but then it's like a Tuesday and you feel it. So we've had like, yes to all the things. We've had all the things. I think for us, the thing that we started betting for early, because we're a performance based fund first. So we invest in really talented founders and we accelerate their companies and return capital to our investors. That's our job. In the US, the makeup is different. Like the US is 51% female. And I just don't believe that if you're looking for talented founders, you should exclude 51% of the population. I don't think that that's a good investment thesis. And there's lots of data to back this up. Female companies are more capital conservative. There's all sorts of different things. So if you're looking at the data, you should be investing in teams that are diverse in some way.
Yeah.
And so our portfolio happily now looks a lot like the US. So we have Korean American founders, we have Latino founders, we have female founders. We love white men. We've invested in white men too. They're part of our population too. But if people are getting a fair shake in your investment committee, your portfolio should look like where you live or where you're doing business.
Yeah, I like
So
that.
for us, it's true, right? So for us, it's our portfolio looks a lot like the US.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Look like where you live. I just love the practical aspect you put to everything in terms of everything you're doing. It just makes complete and utter sense. And it's like, why aren't we doing it? Tell me a little bit more about you're a performance-based fund business. In terms of talented founders, what do you see are the prerequisites of talented founders? Like, what are you looking for?
It's funny because everyone always looks for the silver bullet. Like, what is the thing that makes an exceptional founder that can scale? But I think it's more like 1,000 things that make the exceptional founder that can scale. Like, they have to have the emotional runway to go through a very long process. They have to have the support to go through a very long. I don't have to tell you, you've been through it, but like they have to have all the support to go through a very long process. And they have to really be willing to throw out bad ideas quickly. And so one of the things that I really like about having a marker of talking about if the team is diverse or not in IC, in investment committee, is that you're talking about, has this person been able to take someone wildly different from themselves and sell their idea to them? So no matter what the homogeny looks like if you and I started a business together, we would need somebody different to sell to know that we could sell it because we could probably sell each other anything. And then, but like we would need like an MIT engineer or someone to buy it so that we could say, okay, like other people will also use this. Same thing if you have two MIT engineers that both went to Harvard undergrad that are building something together, they're going to have a very particular idea of how the world works and what it looks like. And you have to, like the good startups, I think, Finder is a great example of this. Like, go out in the world and kick the tires on their ideas and see if they work or not and iterate really quickly. So, we're looking for the ability to do that in the founding team, but also the ability to round out what they don't know. So, I am a great enterprise sales and marketing person. If I am doing our cap table projections or if I am coding something, we need to just double check everything. I should have a team that helps with that, and I do.
Yeah,
At
absolutely.
the same time, like our coders should not be doing my job. They would never raise a fund.
Yeah, okay. It's really interesting that you call all that out because I think quite often we forget about that stuff and we get so like blinkers on and just kind of like keep going, keep going, keep going. And then it's like we don't look up and yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we have a problem here or, something's not working. Do you find a lot of the time, or do you see quite often when, a founder does have the blinkers on, and then what do you do or what does the team do to get them to pull the blinkers off? Because I quite often think that we're just so like, no, 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 this is the way we've got to do it. We're just so wedded to it and we get so consumed by it.
So when you've gotten to that point as a founder, it's no longer a company, it's an art project. That's when it becomes an art project. And if it's an art project, you should go do your art project, Like Rosalia went down the rabbit hole for her album. Thank God she did. It's great. She and she probably even she got other musicians' input and collaborations and things like that before she released it. But then it's not a commercial product. It's an art project. And so a good VC will structure a board to do just that. So our perfect board composition is an investor, the founder, and an independent. And that way you have to get out of your own way because you as a founder are setting a quarterly goal that you're accountable to and then talking to other people about it that maybe you remembered to send updates to or not while you were going. And so like it forces that. So I think the really good repeat founders I've seen kind of institutionalize that practice for themselves of, okay, if I'm vibe coding all weekend, like maybe I've lost the plot. Maybe I should put it in the hands of someone and see if it works and then go back to it. So they structure that either with a group of friends if you're in the seed stage or people that you can bounce ideas off of who you trust, or at the A round or later, it should be your board that's helping you not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a good point. I want to switch it up a little bit. I want to call out this conscious piece and conscious capital and, kind of the VC as we know it, you step into it or you kind of almost look in and it's very, again, listeners, please don't think this is males versus females because it certainly isn't. There's the male energy, there's this female energy, and there's, males operate differently to females, females operate differently to males. And this is really about you, Jennifer, as a person and who you are, because you come across so practical yet so eloquent, so kind, so very business astute. How important is it to have, I guess, empathy, understanding? There's a time and a place where you need to be just calling it out and calling the shots and just like, no, or like you called the art project. You do it in a way, you use language in a way that really isn't like, it's brutal, but it's not brutal in terms of like, that's an art project. Like there's a way to deliver this sort of feedback, right? In terms of the position, what Mendoza Ventures does. And then obviously working with these talented founders who have these egos and, we all do, we've all got an ego. How important is having, a sense of conscious and being the ability to be, more empathetic and also, the delicacy of and also just being very clear, what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think it's the longer I've done this, I think clarity in my role is more important than empathy. Like, I think that we really push to preview to founders, like, this is what we expect this year, this is what is coming up, and then hold them accountable through that and support them in every way possible. But I think the past few years are such a good example. Any CEO that's been in the seat since 2019 has been through the ringer. Like like they've
Yeah.
been through yeah, like a pandemic in the US, our banks decided to melt down for a little while. We've had 3 conflict no matter what your politics are, we've had 3 conflicting administrations in that time. It's just a really hard time to lead. And so if you're going to sustain that for an extended period of time, you have to put the personal tools in place to support yourself through running a really serious endurance run. And so I think my founders would probably tell you I'm more blunt and I'm not always as delicate as I sound on a podcast.
I sense your bluntness. I do. I honestly do. You're doing it in a way that the delivery though it's like clear as kind, right? Like I think what you say is very to the point. It's just the way you deliver
But
it.
I
And I
don't
think
think
for
you
that
do a
delivery,
service like pumping someone up when they're going in the wrong direction or saying like the really good founders I have great relationships with, our brains are wildly different. We disagree on a lot, but we always talk about it and explain each other's position and then come up with a path forward together. I'm always the commercialization person. Like, I'm always the one that's like, we're not selling enough. We're not talking about this in public enough. If you tell like one of our data AI founders, you're not talking about their very sensitive project in public enough, like they just have a heart attack. There's like, and then, 2 quarters with little revenue come in and suddenly like we're having a different conversation. It's really fascinating to I was talking with one of our fellows about this because she's been in the industry now for a year and a half or so, and she said there's this thing about staying power that I'm starting to see, where if you stay in this industry for an extended amount of time, it's not an industry that's easy to stay in, and a lot of people come and go, kinda like government, like they transition in, they think that they're gonna do something cool, and then in 2 years they go. And so, like, there's something about staying power that if you hang in there and solve a problem together for a long time, there's a really beautiful trust that comes from that, where you can give each other. And also, I would say to everyone, don't dish it out unless you're willing to take it. Like, I have received really hard feedback from our founders that's been accurate, and I've had to make adjustments in how I lead.
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I think you're right. I think we have to take stock of ourselves at times, and like you're only as good as the people around you, but also like from a founder versus an investor perspective. I keep using this verse. It's early Friday morning here, so like I'm stuck on this word verse.
Sorry, Friday for you.
No, it's true though. I think that you have to be able to take the feedback in a way that comes back to not taking it personally, if you ask me. Nothing's personal in business.
Yeah.
Like, do you agree with that? Like I always say to people, nothing's personal. Like at times I could be so blunt and then I realize, oops, that came out not as, intended. Or it was intended. It just came out very like sharp. And I always remind people and I remind myself, this isn't personal. Nothing is personal in business. And yet sometimes we take things so personally. And I think that's when we have to really just go, hang on a second. Let's just look at what does this mean? It comes back to clarity, getting clear on What is the feedback here? What am I being told? Pausing, reflecting to be better the next day. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's super
Well,
important.
and in a perfect world, everyone's goals are aligned.
Yeah.
So the point of venture capital was designed to create generational wealth. That's what it was designed to do. It was created to like add outsized returns to a portfolio alongside outsized risk. So very risky, also great returns when it works. And so if you're aligned with the founder on our goal here is to make money, then the path to making money can be argued. But if there needs to be a team change or something like that, and everyone's aligned on the goal and you've been tracking performance together over a couple of quarters, those transitions come much easier. Whereas sometimes a founder's goal is to feel really cool or like impress their friends or it could be something different than so we spend a lot of time in diligence asking our founders, what does an exit look like for you?
Mm.
Because there's this especially in the US, we're so good at narrative, and we call it the boy Cinderella story of, I went to Stanford and I started a project with my roommate and got funded and lived happily ever after. Like they if an exit is an IPO, that's a very different track than what usually happens in finance and cybersecurity, which is a larger company acquiring you.
Yeah.
And so we have to be on the same page of what do your multiples look like? Where are you trying to get the business before we start selling it? I think it's easy for founders to forget that they are take the money and then it's their job to grow and give back the money. And when there's all this, like, especially in the US, there's just so much crazy narrative. Like, so if it's, I'm going to be Elon, okay, great. That's not an investment I want to make right now. It's a long road.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the Latino Fund, the first Latino fund on the East Coast. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So my partner is Mexican American. He grew up in LA. His mom and dad immigrated from Mexico in the 60s. And so we affectionately call it LA Mexican, which is like a very specific culture here in the US. It's like tacos, but without the cheese, like in Texas. And he came to Boston to go to Harvard for grad school, and we founded the fund together. So we're the first Latino-founded fund on the East Coast. The representation issues that women face are faced by everyone in the US. And now in the US, the Latino population is 20% of our population, but very few VC firms are Latino founded. So we're the first one on the East Coast, and we started in 2016. And it's funny because when we found out, there's a great organization called NAIC, and they did a study and published it in an article about us. And I didn't believe it. I was like, there has to be one in Miami or something. So I did all this extra research. And my partner was like, what are you doing? Like, just take it,
So
take the accolade.
yeah, okay, so that makes sense because 10 years like young, and yet you're the first Latino fund on the East Coast. How many funds are there then in the US that are Latino based?
Off the top of my head right now, six that I can think of just to name. But it's not a large portion of the industry. So, in the US, 2% of all venture capital goes to women and people of color combined across the US. In Boston, it's a little bit less, it's 0.7. And it's about the same for funds. Because if you think about how the money flows from, so LPs invest in GPs, which are fund managers who then invest in startups. It usually doesn't look better the further up the capital stack you go. 2% of the money is going to women because 1% of decision making GPs are female. And so, and that's a whole dynamic that no matter what the bias is, it's going to be hard to break through.
Do you think it'll ever be broken through?
It has to, right? Like, it just has to. Like, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
I don't believe that the world is better for not funding 51% of the population. I just don't think that it works out in humanity's favor to overlook talent at that kind of a scale.
Yeah. And do you think that it'll be like, I mean, it has to, and I agree it has to. Like, do you think we're years away? Like, if I think about the world we're in right now and the revolution we're in and everything is changing on the daily. How far off do you think we are from this sort of change?
I don't know, I think it's I wish I could be like didn't Sheryl Sandberg do a study and it was like in 200 years or something?
I thought it was 100 or something, like, because 'cause I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah,
it won't be in
she's
our
like, "In a million
lifetime."
years."
Yeah.
I I kind of take the Obama perspective of we're better off than we were when I was younger, and I try and look at the
Yeah.
really long term. Like, is so when I think of the positivity that I see is I live with a 12-year-old daughter, so I live with a, like, 12-year-old absolute spitfire, and she can unpack Taylor Swift's entire investment strategy for you. Like, she knows why the albums were re-recorded. She knows what provisions were in the
My
contract. She
gosh.
knows something about how her dad was in PE, so he knew about like, it was this whole like, she just doesn't have a tolerance for the kind of things I think women were taught to tolerate
Yeah.
for so long. Like, a great example is we gave to a nonprofit locally, and my kids and I dropped off the check because it's a great nonprofit. And the executive director, she's a cute 12-year-old. So she said, "Do you want to be in the photo?" And my daughter just goes, "No, I don't want to be in your photo." And if anyone my age or like within 5 years of either side of me would have been smacked upside the head for like
Totally.
for saying
Totally.
that as a young girl, but she's
Yeah.
so um instantly applied her autonomy in that moment. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
And then we talked about, like, you could have delivered that a little bit nicer, but you did a really good job. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. She's following, but she's looking up to her mum and she's looking up to her dad and she's like seeing the way you operate in business. And, even the fact that they're in the boardroom having their dinner right now and it's just part of life and part of family. I think that, the younger generation, that there is so much opportunity for them. It's how they embrace it. And I feel like at times I look at us and just like go, why are you putting up with that? Or why did you do that? And like, you don't have to do this, like do it this way. I also think they can learn a lot from us as well. I think there's young experience and then there's older experience. And then how do you bring the two together? And I think by bringing the two together, that's where we can make some significant change sooner than in 100 or 200 years' time. It comes down
Mm.
to what we do with this power that we have, bad power versus good power. That's a completely separate conversation. It applies in business, it applies everywhere. We like that, we can either behave badly or we can do better, be better to make a difference and make the significant impact we need to make
well,
to make the
the
changes.
the way that I always look at it is that I don't know of a woman that doesn't think about where she buys her coffee from. Like Melbourne is the coffee capital of the world, right? And so when you go to work in the morning, are you walking into Starbucks or are you walking into the local coffee shop that you
No,
know is
I go
female
to my
owned?
local I'll give a shout out to my
Yeah.
local coffee shop called Crema. I go there every morning religiously. It's just part of my thing.
And that's, so let's say you're spending like, I don't know, $5 a day or something like that, and it adds up. That's like $100 a month or so that you're probably dropping on coffee. So when you gave your gift to your alma mater of $200 for the year or whatever it is, did you ask them if they were investing in funds that was like their alumni? Like, I think that women have forgotten that we're driving the car.
Yeah.
We forget that we're investors because we're sold products that we don't question. I would not buy a cake if I didn't know what was in it. I'm not gonna buy a 401k if I don't know what it's investing in.
Yeah. So true.
I'm using American language, but like a 401k is like an investment thing here. It's like a retirement account.
It's so true. I've got a couple of final questions for you. What are you seeing in terms of in the industries that you play in? What are you seeing in terms of the significant changes from last year to this year? Yeah, as we're moving forward, like, I know AI, it's like everyone's talking about it. Like I said, I went to this conference yesterday, it blew my mind. And even on that stat, 840 people, I think there was less than 10% women at this event for entrepreneurs yesterday, which just shocked me. What are you seeing in the industries that you're in?
So we've been investing in AI for 10 years. So obviously that's blowing up right now. I think AI is where I see so much of the hope that we're talking about because here in the US, there are great conversations happening about data sets. Like so much of our medical data in the US was not trained on women. Like we just don't have, like if you're developing a cancer drug or something like that, the mice are men and then they like even the mice. And so there's a lot of funds and data people looking at like how do we make sure that the data represents who we're applying this to? That's
Yeah.
really fascinating. And also the female investors that are in AI, we're all loud, which I love. So a great example is we were investing in a data company and they weren't handling women's healthcare data differently. And in the US now, there's very complicated laws around pregnancy and options and all those kinds of things. And so just by asking the question, we changed how this company handles women's healthcare data and who has access to that data. So we protected essentially HIPAA by and data privacy just by having a woman ask a question. And I'm not a data scientist. I'm an investor that's coming in and looking at the overall scope of this company. But to your point about the certification, I'm not a data scientist that should be asking this question. But just because a woman was in the room, we were able to change the entire data handling for a company that now processes a lot of the veteran data in the US.
Yeah, I know it sounds it which comes back to this male and female like energy, if you ask me, in terms of applying that intuitive. Like I even play with, OpenAI and Claude, and I feel like Claude is more understanding from a female perspective, and the way it responds is different. Like the data set feels like it's got some sort of, oh, you get me more, you understand me more versus just this. Yes. Anyway, we could like again, like there's so much we could talk
Well, and
about.
if you look at the teams for those two companies, it explains it.
Yeah, so true, and I think that's kind of really yeah, it's just like it's a whole new world, isn't it, in terms of everything that, we can do differently to then ensure that the 51% of the population plays a bigger role in how business, how the world evolves, and I think the more we can, leverage that, the better. Last question for you, how do you juggle it all yourself? How do you, mum, founders, like that's another, they're children in itself in a way. How do you juggle it all?
My founders would tell you that I'm the child. I don't think it's ever graceful. I think it's so the one like tool that we use as a family that I think really helps is we essentially have quarterly meetings, which where I'm like, okay, guys, like we're going to lock in for summer. You're going to this camp. You're doing this. This is what I have to do. And so we look at what's sort of coming down the pipe for our family and we look at what we have committed to and then we make joint decisions. So we included our kids in that. So a great example is a couple of years ago, I was on a committee in Washington and I was excited about it and I wanted to do it. It meant I'd have to travel to Washington, D.C. quarterly and I'd spend more time away from my family. And so I sat the kids down and said, I really want to do this. I think it's really cool. It's geeky. I'm not going to get paid, but I'm going to maybe help some people. And I think it's really cool. And they were like, yeah, go. And so I don't think that they would ever not say go, but just because they were included in the conversation and we talked about what it would mean and how they'd have to like learn how to microwave chicken nuggets by themselves and stuff like that. Like it was it was a joint decision and it had a time buffer on it. It was a 2-year committee appointment. So I said, we're going to check in after the first year and make sure we want to keep going because I can always quit. So I think that tool has served us really well and it changes all the time. you know, either we laughed at like either a company or the kids on fire, but like luckily the two don't align too often.
Love the family quarterly meetings. It's amazing, and the fact that it's so inclusive with everyone in the family, and that you're continuously checking. It just proves that everything is integrated. Life, work, business. It all just flows together, and I think that's the only way we can look at it. You can't separate family from business. It is just all part of it, right?
I think it is integrated whether we acknowledge it or not. Like even the like everyone has a different style and some women I know are much more comfortable being at work and just not having anyone know anything about their personal life, which is totally fine if you work better that way. That's not how my family let me know that it was going to work if I wanted to have a full-time job. But also it just requires a lot of staff. And I think we have to acknowledge that too, that if you can do that, but it just takes a staff. Like, I keep talking about Taylor Swift today, but we were laughing because we had our first trip to London as a family, and we did the overnight from Boston gets you to London at like 9 o'clock in the morning. And we had a full day. So I just looked at the kids and I was like, Taylor doesn't get jet lag. We're gonna lock in. And they looked at me and they said, my husband looks at me and goes, Taylor Swift has a staff and a private jet. I just flew commercial. So I think it's like, especially now with all the social media and everything, just like unpack what's happening behind that. And, if someone is showing up to work and they look like they're just working all the time and that there's nothing going on the back end, that's great. They just have a staff doing it for them.
Yeah, totally true. Okay, I'm gonna wind this up so that I can let you get back to your evening. Do you have any advice for anyone who is No, I'm just gonna like keep it really open ended because we've covered off a lot of ground here. What would be your final piece of advice to all the listeners here listening to the pod?
Especially for the founders, like, don't hand over the keys to your car. Like, you're driving the car. So even if you're asking for money from someone, that's a partnership. Interview them back. They're not
Yes.
doing you a favor. You're gonna make them very wealthy if you do your job right.
Yeah.
So make sure that it's someone that you want to make very wealthy if you do your job right, and someone that will actually help you get there. And if you treat it like an interview process in reverse and they don't see it as respectful, that should be a red flag because you're going to be working with this person for 10 years or more. If you go by just the stats, it's going to take you 10 to 17 years to exit probably. And so if you're going to be working with them for that long, you need to know what you're getting into, and what their expectations are. So don't be shy about asking questions that clear those things up for you.
That and keep it practical, keep the questions super practical as well. Like everything you've talked about today has a real practical lens across it. Like, yeah, ask the questions, be clear. Clarity is key over empathy. Love that. You shared so much today, Jennifer. How do we find out more about Mendoza Ventures? How do we find out more about you?
Our website is mendozaventures.com, and I have a funny name. It's Senofer Mendoza, so I'm really easy to find on LinkedIn.
Thank you. And oh my gosh, I keep saying you remind me of someone famous. It's going to come to me and I'm going to email you as well.
It's
Uh,
Josh Thomas.
Jennifer, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Love what you're doing and yeah, keep going. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.